I think it speaks highly of the individuals that we have working for us in Walton County. Thank you.
Amen. The first item on the agenda, minutes. Everybody has a copy. We have a motion.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion.
Second.
Second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Any announcements?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, we have two announcements. Well, one announcement. We have two items that we have a request to continue. The first one is a legislative item, is the number one on your agenda, Inlet Retreat PUD large-scale amendment. It's come to our attention there's been some posting and notice requirements that the applicant did not properly follow, and so we are requesting that be continued until the August 13th meeting of the Planning Commission.
We have a motion.
So moved.
13%.
Right.
Second.
We have a
That is
motion and a
next meeting.
second.
So the motion was,
To continue.
David and Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, the next item is number two on your agenda. It's a quasi-judicial item. It is the Wood Subdivision Phase 3. Again, we have a request by the applicant to continue this item until the August 13th meeting at this time and place.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Shouldn't you be asking for opposed too?
I did.
No more.
For
You gotta
what?
be fast if you oppose. Okay.
You opposed?
No.
Okay.
But normally, just as a matter of routine, you say both.
If I didn't, I apologize. I normally do. Item number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is, we have, the balance of our agenda is quasi-judicial items need to be sworn in.
Anyone who anticipates testifying today before the board or speaking to the board, please stand and raise your right hand so we can swear you in. Again, if you plan on speaking or testifying to the board. Yeah. Do each of you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give before this board will be the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And if you come to the stand, just tell us that you have been sworn in and say your name so we'll have a good record of your testimony. Oh, Commissioners, have any of you had any ex parte contacts that you have not disclosed or?
No.
No.
I had one closed. Is that covered?
Yes, you've got, and with any of those ex parte contacts prevents you from making a fair and impartial decision, and that's after these.
No, sir.
Thank you. It's all yours.
Mr. Chairman, number 3 on our agenda is Lot 8, Neely Business Village. I ask Matt Carpenter to present this for us, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Matt Carpenter for the Planning Department, and I have been sworn. This is a major development order application requesting approval to develop 6,050 square foot metal warehouse building on 0.73 acres with a future land use of light industrial. This is a parcel located within the Neely Business Village, which is a light industrial subdivision that currently exists. I think the applicant here is prepared to present their project.
Applicant?
Are they here?
Are they here? Nope.
Well,
Anybody have any questions of staff?
I believe Chad Smith from Preble Rish is here, our engineering review consultant.
Well, I had a question regarding the proportionate fair share. It seemed like a lot of money for a warehouse with only 10 parking spots. I want to know how they came to that calculation since it wasn't in my package. It just seemed like, I mean, it was in my package, but it just seemed like a lot of money. I wondered if it was because it was solely on Highway 98.
The segment that it impacts is a pretty expensive segment.
That's the answer.
Can't be that many trips.
Actually, I think it's one trip,
And it had previous uses on it.
one trip.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
$12,000,
$12,000.
$12,580 per trip on that impacted segment.
That ought to stymie development around there.
I'm telling you, I mean, it's a warehouse, 6,000 square foot, and a previously developed site, if I'm not mistaken, but it was just a vacant site with.
Vacant site that's never had a building on
It
it.
did not have a building.
Never had a building on
All
it.
right. So there was no vestige.
Okay.
Let me see if I have another question. No, that was it.
Anybody else have a question for
Yeah,
Stan?
how is, do we know how the, I don't see a drainage plan here, maybe I'm missing it.
I think the stormwater is conveyed to the pond that's in the center of the development.
It's conveyed to
Matt.
Previously existing common stormwater facility.
Okay.
Max,
The
get
lake.
a little closer.
The lake that's inside the development, I'm sorry, is the stormwater pond.
Okay.
So they were required to convey to the existing facility.
Familiar with that.
Any other questions for Stan?
No.
How many, what, do we have a calculation so we know when that reaches capacity? I mean, this goes back 100 years.
I'm sure we do, but I don't have that.
Okay.
It's been there about 30 years.
I want to say it goes back
Been
to
there for
early
quite a while.
80s.
Long.
It's got bass in it.
Anything else? Okay, we'll open the public portion of the hearing. Does any member of the public wish to speak on this item? Seeing nobody, we'll close the public portion of the hearing. Commissioners?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Looking at these two, items 4 and items 5, I think item 4, I know we've had a lot of people sign up to speak on. Item 5, we've had none. Would it be, can we move those around in the agenda, Mark?
You can, yes, sir. You-
Take
you're in
item
charge
number
of
5 first, and then we'll come up and
Absolutely.
follow up number 4?
it. Yes, sir.
Okay.
But if we got people to speak in for, why don't we do that first?
I think it's gonna take a lot longer, and if there's people here with 5, we can just move on and come back to it.
And number 5?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, number 5 is Crossing at Inlet Beach Phase 2, 7,192 square foot commercial retail center on 1 acre. Future land use of neighborhood infill in Inlet Beach, Wall Street 98. And I believe the engineer's here for this. Any questions, Mac and I can answer those for you.
Is the applicant here? Yes. All right.
I didn't get a chance to ask you, Wayne, TRC, our report said that we get a TRC report, I mean, not TRC, but Scenic Corridor Review Board. Did they make a ruling on this one yet?
Yes, they can't go forward to this meeting until the DRB approves it, so they've already approved this.
Well, it was in our things that we would get a report at the meeting tonight, because
That was last night, and I can tell you what they said, if you give me 1 second.
well, that'd be good. Okay.
Carrie,
You know what? It was-
Carrie, if you're going to say that we have to have a sworn in.
Okay.
Testimony, I'm sorry. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give before the board will be the truth? Thank you.
And just because of the holiday, we had our DRB meeting last night because of the holiday last week, so this is
I
from last
just
night.
wanted to know what comments they had.
Okay, because the request was presented, and they asked, was this the same, was it the same as phase 1? And they were told yes, and the Lower Sprague Party made a motion to approve contingent upon the callers being the same as phase 1, as were approved in phase 1. Lee Moore seconded, all ayes. Do you agree?
There was no changes in their lighting plan?
There were no changes in that approval last night.
Okay,
from what is proposed tonight.
okay. Thank
Anything
you.
else for staff? The applicant?
Good afternoon, Robert Carroll, McNeil Carroll Engineering, 17800 Panama City Beach Parkway, the engineer of record and the agent. I have been sworn in. We came before you, I guess it's been a couple of years now, to do phase one. The project has been completed. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the site or not, but this is the finished product. Same architect, same engineer, same developer, whole same team, so it is a consistent project flowing. Same colors, everything is the same. I don't know about the contractor yet, but it's just a continuation of the same project, be interconnected with the parking lot. The service road in the back was already previously built. If you look at your site plans, all the light shaded colors, that's all previously installed, and we'll continue on with phase two if you approve.
The only questions I had, did you get any comments during the last year from either the public in the neighborhood or the Turtle Watch or the DNR DEP regarding the lighting being that it's at the elevation that it's at, and its lighting is being so high on the building? I just wondered if it worked effectively, or there were any modifications or changes, or you got any
We've not changed
complaints?
anything, we've not heard anything, we've had community meetings, TRC, we've had lots of public hearings, and we've not heard one response.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We'll open the public portion of the hearing. I don't have anybody signed up. Is there anybody that would like to speak on this item? Don't see anybody, so we'll close the public portion of the hearing.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to item number 4.
Chairman, number 4 is Sydney Park, a PUD. I'll ask Mr. Carpenter to come up and give a brief of this application, and I believe also the applicant's here as well.
Matt Carpenter for the Planning Department, and I have been sworn. This is a major development order application submitted by Ross Binkley, PE, requesting approval to construct 26 residential lots as a subdivision on 3.37 acres with a future land use of neighborhood infill. This subdivision will be accessed from an existing unimproved road called Rachel Road. They are asking for PUD approval, and as part of that PUD approval, they are proposing the following deviations from the Land Development Code. A front yard building setback of 15 feet rather than the standard 20 feet. A rear yard building setback of 10 feet instead of the standard 15 feet. A side yard building setback of 5 feet instead of the required 7.5 feet. They're requesting to maintain an unpaved roadway outside of the development, in addition to not paving the roads within the development. They're asking to be relieved of the requirement to install 5 foot wide sidewalks on both sides of the residential street in the subdivision. They are also proposing to buy out approximately 1/2 of the required preservation. I think the applicant here, or the applicant's agent's here to present his project.
Do we have any questions of staff before we go to
Just,
the
I
applicant?
have one. Regarding, there was, in the comments I got in my package, there were a bunch of questions about notices. You have copies of when notices went out and
We have-
have affidavits and all that stuff?
Yes, sir.
If
And
we get to that point tonight?
We have confirmed that the public notice required by our Land Development Code has been satisfied. There is a notice requirement within infill to hold a community meeting. The code does not specify in detail where that notice is going to be advertised. I mean, the county has a policy of advertising all of our notices in the Beach Breeze Defuniak Herald.
You're saying that
There
the
is-
community notice is not a legal requirement?
It's a legal requirement, but there's no requirement for a specific paper. It just has to be a paper of general circulation. There is a certification in the community meeting packet that the notice was provided and published in that paper 10 days in advance of the scheduled meeting.
I saw it. It's just that there wasn't a consistency in the publications, and I brought a question to
We
my
certainly encourage folks to use the Beach Breeze Definiak Herald, but the BCC hasn't specifically established that as policy for the community notices.
And one other question regarding the deviation request for sidewalks. Isn't it typical in developments that developers buy out, and do we have in our, and I was looking for it, I couldn't find where in the book we had our requirements or the things that are allowed in a PUD to ask for. Is it specifically spelled out in there that you can ask for, because I couldn't find it,
In the PUD,
the buyouts to be abrogated?
you can ask for anything in the Land Development Code that is strictly within the Land Development Code set of regulations. You can't ask for a deviation from anything that's in the comprehensive plan. They can ask for a waiver of the sidewalk requirement as part of their PUD. We certainly don't support that requirement from the planning department, but it's within their authority to ask
I understand.
that it
Thank
be
you.
considered as part of their PUD.
How does this, there's a tributary, this goes ultimately watersheds down into Stallworth. How is this with regard to 300-foot setbacks from the tributary?
Not impacted. It's not within the coastal dune lake protection zone related to the tributaries.
Okay.
Is the request, and I think I read it somewhere in there, but I'm just going to ask real quick, the request for non-paving as per requirements, is that a deviation in the PUD they're requesting too?
That is correct.
There were 3. Thank you.
And our engineering department has recommended not approving that.
I understand.
Anybody from the applicant?
Good evening. My name is Ross Binkley. I'm the engineer of record for Sydney Park. I have been sworn in, and I would just like to, we understand about the road that Public Works, we did receive a comment after TRC that Public Works did not support our proposal to install an unpaved road within our subdivision. Currently, Rachel Road is a 12 to 15 foot wide sand drive through a 30-foot private easement that gets back to our property. And we propose to put in a 20-foot wide lime rock aggregate road back to our property and through our property. And there's several reasons for this. And one of them, first of all, I just want to quickly tell you remind you what the code says about requirements for unpaved roads. It does allow that, it says a subdivision, this is in the LDC 50407A1A. It says a subdivision may have one or more streets totaling up to 4,000 feet in length and serving no more than 20 lots that is not required to be paved. However, such unpaved streets cannot extend outside the boundaries of the subdivision or into any other phases of the subdivision. Unpaved streets shall be platted as private streets. We're proposing 1,800 feet of road, so we're under 4,000 feet. We do not, the deviation is that we're asking it, we're proposing 26 lots. The code allows up to 20 lots, subdivisions, to have unpaved roads. So that's the deviation, is the number of lots. And also, one of the main reasons we want to do this is that Public Works, when they gave us their comments, their first comment states that the proposed project area is part of the initial county problem area, ICPAL. Therefore, per policy I-458C of the Walton County Comprehensive Plan, the proposed stormwater management facility needs to attenuate the 100-year critical storm event. Originally, we had designed, the code required us to do a 25-year storm, and apparently this is in some sort of a problem area for stormwater runoff. And my opinion is that an unpaved road obviously would generate less of a runoff issue than if we went in there with asphalt roads. I know from the community meeting also, people that came told us that there were some issues in that area with stormwater. So That's one of the reasons why we want to do that. But I know there are a lot of people that want to speak, so if anybody has any questions for me, yes, sir.
So you're not treating you're paving what's inside the subdivision,
No.
We're proposing unpaved roads, or
Unpaved
gravel
roads.
roads, yes, sir.
all around the subdivision and out.
But we're still providing 100-year storm for the project inside our property limits.
But you're not treating any of the stormwater, you're just assuming that it'll be better off.
No, what it is the county allows a smaller runoff coefficient for a gravel road than for a paved road. Assuming, the assumption is that you have some infiltration in a gravel road, and also it slows down the runoff, the sheet flow off of the road into the swale. So the design for this subdivision is for a gravel road with a swale to try to slow all that down.
Can you hold the 100-year storm event without a gravel road? If you have to pave your road.
I believe we could. We have enough
Do you have a
room.
study to show you can?
I haven't done that, but I feel that we could do that. We could pave the road. That's not like a sticking point that we have to have an unpaved road. We're requesting this, but obviously.
But I don't think I could even look at an unpaved road unless I paved road. Even if you said tonight you were going to pave it, I don't know that I could even think about that, because you can't show me that you can meet the 100-year storm event. And we've got more flooding down here, as everybody knows.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been down there when it floods. And
Yes, ma'am.
these places already flood down there. So when you do this, it's just going to be more flooding. So I'd want to know that you could hold the 100-year storm event with a paved road.
We can. I mean, I don't have those calculations with me,
But you could
but I
get
know that we can.
But you could get it and show it
Yes, ma'am.
at the next meeting if you had
Yes,
to.
ma'am.
Okay.
You're going to do this, your little subdivision where they've got houses this big.
Right.
You're going to tax
Little bit
these
bigger.
people, you're going to tax these people for the cost of maintaining their road, and then the cost of maintaining the supporting road, when you've got a gravel road, 20 feet and a 30-foot right-of-way,
Yes.
and you've got a swale that has to be maintained,
Yes, sir.
and these people are going to be able to afford those association fees.
I'm just an engineer. I don't know about the affording of, but Mr. Senior here, he's done the calculating, and he believes that this is a viable project. Yes.
Okay.
I have some questions, if you don't mind,
Yes, sir,
Mr.
go
Chairman. Mr. Binkley, does the project own Rachel Drive or Road?
No, sir.
Okay, so that's a
It's a
non-exclusive.
private easement.
It's a non-exclusive easement, is that right?
It's right. It's an ingress egress utility easement, private easement.
And can you locate for me on the plan, I couldn't seem to find it, or do you have a copy of the plan?
Yes,
That you
sir.
can locate the lift station for me?
Yeah. Sheet C4, just south of there's a,
By the pool.
yeah, south of the pool. There's the large island in the middle there,
Says lift
next to
station.
lot 26.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Some other questions, if you don't mind, Mr.
Go
Chairman?
ahead.
How does that force main, where does the force main actually go?
We run it back through down Rachel Road back to the east, and then it runs up Sugar Drive north to a gravity manhole in the road.
So you've got a water line on the north side and a sewer line?
No, sir, I put the water line on the north side and the sewer on the south side to separate those.
Okay, our plans are not that.
Yeah, they're kind of tiny.
So you've actually got it in the gravel area, it looks like.
It's about 2 foot off of the edge of the road. It's not under the gravel.
You're bringing in overhead
Well, right now out there they have overhead. I don't, have you? Yeah. Are you gonna? You're gonna put it underground? Underground power.
What portion, and that's gonna be in the ditch? There's nothing left but the ditch.
You're gonna run it underground all the way down, or
If he-
pick
if
it
he's
up
gonna
at your
speak, he
property?
needs to be speaking to us.
I believe it's gonna remain overhead to our property, and then we'll go underground from there within our subdivision.
So if you don't put it in the 20-foot road, you get a 10-foot area that is the swale.
Yes.
Okay, so when they grade the swale, they grade around the power line?
Well, actually, the power poles now are right in the middle of the easement, so we're going to have to relocate the poles anyway.
Okay.
I show them being moved to the south side of the easement line. Oh, that's on C1. You can see where those power pole locations are.
David, you have something else?
Yes. I have some problems naturally with deviations and from anything that we've passed for PUDs, and sometimes they're required, and they have good reasoning behind them. One of the reasonings you elucidate, or this in your compatibility analysis elucidate, is that you're doing it for preservation reasons. And I appreciate that there's some sort of clustering going on in this project, but one of the questions I have, as you described it, or I don't know if it was that according to these guidelines, it was very low volume roads in rural areas, that it was adequate to do it for unpaved roads up to 25. I hardly think that this is a rural area when you've got a density of, 7+ units per acre. I think that's a bit of a stretch for an analogy. And can you explain to me why in a project that you claim to be doing it for this design purposes or for a more preserved style of project, that you've got a 0.83 acre buyout on preservation going on in there?
Well, as Mr. Patton already pointed out, we've got pretty small houses, and we're trying to, that's one of the reasons that he's proposing that, is to limit the amount of setback area on the site. And unfortunately, the preservation requirements will not allow you to count any existing landscaping within 10 feet of your setback area. And you can't count anything, like in the back of the lot, anything behind the lot. So
you mean
what really, our intent, I believe his intent, I don't believe that your intent is to go out there and clear 10 foot around the building setback area and build these houses.
Well, while we're on that, while you mentioned that, on one of your designs, you have about 8 of the properties, I believe, backing right up to and abutting the 10-foot buffer. Mm-hmm. Lots 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 9, 10, 13, 18, and 19, all actually abut the buffer.
Yes, sir.
Is that a building footprint that I'm looking at on the drawing in C7, or is that a lot?
None of the setback line is the large dash line within the lot. Mm-hmm. So none of the setbacks encroach onto the 10-foot buffer.
And none of the building lines come so close as to make it physically impossible to work and construct a building without walking through the buffers.
To the buffer. Right? Well, no, some of the buffer will have to be cleared if we get to the rear of the setback area. But the code doesn't. You can clear and replant.
Right.
So.
I just wanted to be clear on that.
Yes, sir. That's right.
Some of these are in the buffer, correct?
Some of them are
what? Lots.
The corners of them are in the buffer.
Of the setback areas? No, ma'am. I don't believe so.
Well, the setbacks are within the buffer on that map on C7.
Yeah.
Appears to be.
Which page?
C7.
The corner of
C7.
4 is, the corner of 5 is, a whole bunch of 6 is.
Well, if you please turn to C2 is the landscape plan. I think you're looking at maybe the lot lines, not the setback. I don't think the setback lines are on C7.
And when you say setback lines, these are where the spotted lines on C4 are your proposed building footprints, is that correct? C2.
No,
on
C2, right, C2. Yes, sir, that's right. The dash lines within the lots.
Again, my question goes right to the same thing. You would have to destroy the buffer and then replant them because of the proximity of the building is literally up against them.
In some cases, yes, sir.
That means you would be building, especially like on lot 13, there would be buffer, vegetation right up against the house. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes, sir. Well,
Well, it
I
would be.
don't know
That
the
would also be,
exact.
looks to be the case on 18, 19, part of 2, part of 3.
3.
You know, if you look at the note that's pointing, it's actually pointing at lot 13 on C2.
Mm-hmm.
It gives a distance, the overall distance of length of the buffer. Natural vegetation to remain. Supplemental vegetation is required to provide a minimum of 10 canopy trees, 7 understory trees, and 27 shrubs. There's a certain number of trees and shrubs that you have to make sure are in that buffer, and those can be distributed throughout the buffer. So, you know, going back to your question, the answer really would be no. I don't think you would have to necessarily have vegetation right to the house.
My understanding, and that property to the west is, I think, is a
That's state
state-owned
land.
property.
Yes, sir.
It
State.
points moot to me, really, but where it's not so moot is on the north property line.
Mhm.
And you have not 1, 2, 3 that literally, or 4 close enough that the buildings literally abut the 10-foot vegetated buffer.
Mhm.
I would expect that 10-foot vegetated buffer, if for no other reason at your community meeting, which we didn't get a copy of the minutes yet, and I guess we'll hear about that. But I don't know what the restriction, what's required for you, but to ask for a variance when you have that sort of proximity to your neighbors who have, I don't know what kind of distance between their buildings and the property line, but you're putting these buildings within 10 feet of the property line and already testified that you're only planting what's required, not any more than that specifically, unless you're telling me that you plan to plant more along the north property line.
Yes.
No. You need to step up to the microphone, please.
I mean, this is where the rubber hits the road right up
Please
here.
state your name and have you been sworn?
Yes, sir. My name is Mike Senior, and I have been sworn in.
Okay.
Sorry, if you wouldn't mind repeating, I can answer your
Sure.
question.
My question is, the real issue where you need a buffer when we have differing land uses, specifically is when you have neighbors, not so much when you have a state forest out you. And I don't really, that point's moot, would you keep it? But in that 10-foot vegetated buffer, I would think that you would pull all these houses down and shift this whole thing away from there so you've got a little yard and not pressing 1, 2, 3 of those houses up there right 10 feet from the property line. And if you do that, and that's fine if you do that, and if we allow the variances or vote for them, that you would be offering us and the public and your neighbors something as in the way of either a larger vegetated buffer or a more vegetated buffer than is required.
I certainly have no problem with increasing the minimums that are required by the code and leaving it like it is right now.
You mean for the plants or the distance?
For the plants, and if, I'm certainly, I'll look at the distance as well on those 3 lots. I can certainly work something out with that.
Okay. I also had another couple of questions, and it's either you or your engineer. But go ahead, Tom. I'll wait.
If you have something.
Yeah, I do. I saw that I don't know if it was in the parking plan or it was just in a layout plan, that each one of the houses, because of its size, is only required to have 2 parking spaces per. This is a homeowners association with a pool. And albeit they're one-bedroom houses or two-bedroom houses?
Two-bedroom.
Two bedrooms, and two cars. Is it in the covenants and restrictions for the homeowners association, or is it at least planned to, that they're not going to be allowed to have parties? Because I didn't see an overflow parking area anywhere in there, and nor with the restricted size of the roads, and then paved, and not very big yards and sites. Although I saw a common area down and across from the pool. Is there any plan for an overflow parking area so that in reality, when we're dealing with a reality here, everybody likes to go or have a party once in a while? And if in this parking plan, there's nothing but it doesn't do anything but breed consternation, in my opinion. So I wondered if you had a plan or have conceived of a plan for, surplus or additional parking for the subdivision for guests and stuff like that.
I mean, no, we have not done that yet. So.
Unfortunately, with the preservation requirements being what they are, we really can't afford to clear anymore
Well,
for parking.
it is what it is. If you had less units, you wouldn't have that problem. Or you could do more of a buyout and put a couple of them, even if it's 2 or 3 down by the pool or across the street from the pool. I think is where you had some vacant area. Now, I don't think that's a wetland or anything.
No, there are no wetlands.
Yeah, I
I mean,
didn't think there were. It just might be something for you to consider.
no, certainly. I definitely see your point, and I do not have a problem with increasing or giving extra overflow parking.
The common area by the pool is where the lift station is.
Yeah, we could put a few there.
Yeah, well, across the street from the pool area is, I think,
That's
is
where
the,
the pond is.
That's the retention.
That's the
that's a
retention
retention
pond.
pond?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see
North,
that on
north of that, across the street, it's just south.
Well, wherever you could do it.
We could do a few there.
Hey,
That's already
absolutely.
shown to be clear.
It's just, I'm not saying that you overlooked it, but in reality of things, I mean, meeting the code and living making a neighborhood livable are two different things. I'm not throwing stones at your neighbors because I know a bunch of them out there, and I've been in that neighborhood before. It's tough when somebody has a
Right.
party over
No,
there.
I understand, and I absolutely agree, and we can certainly work something out.
And I just didn't want you to follow the same pitfalls as others, so you may want to consider, even if it's 2 or 3 parking spots somewhere else, because if you don't make them, they're going to make themselves eventually,
I agree.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we have room to do that.
David, you have any other questions?
probably.
Tom, go ahead.
I wanted to address sheet C3. The drainage, your building pads are a couple of feet. The site is draining away from the road. And you've got finished floor elevations of, you've got topos of 28 feet. You're building your building pad, maybe that's a building, maybe that's just being built off grade. But there's no way you get the water to flow uphill, and it looks to me like you're trying to make it flow uphill.
Well, we are proposing slab on grade, and we are going to have to fill the footprint.
So you're filling,
Do that.
in some cases, you're filling 3 feet, and if you do it at a 4-to-1, you need 12 feet within your building area, within your 10 feet.
4 to 1.
I don't know how.
Yeah. We probably have to go. a little
Somehow you're
slower.
gonna have to build it up, and you're going to have to kick the water
Yes.
back to the street.
Yes, or pipe it, gutter the house and pipe it to the right of way.
Okay, but I'm just concerned about your slope. If you're building a building pad,
Yes.
and you're building it up 3 feet, it just seems, I
Well,
presume.
what it is, the road, the lots are about a foot above the finished floor elevation shown are about a foot above the crown of the road everywhere around.
Right.
So there should be enough fall, it shouldn't be it's not gonna be standing way up out of the ground compared to the road elevation.
No, but your slope is falling away. Now, it's not falling away
Well,
precipitously, but
the grade exists, right now, you're right, it's, the property is high, sort of in the middle, and kind of falls away in all directions. Ultimately to the south, to that pond, what is it? Peace Pond? Peace Pond. The road, elevations are pretty close to existing grade. So when you get to the lots on the outside of the road, then they've got to be a little bit higher than what existing grade is to get above the road.
And I understand that, but my concern is again, I have a hard time visualizing, if you've got a building pad and the lot's sloping away, you're going to be chasing the slope with that grading. And I don't know how steep you're going to try to make these building pads. But you got very little room there to do much of anything.
Mm-hmm.
We can also, we don't have to increase, build up the pad that much, and we can use stem walls, we can use pilings, various building methods in order to get the house up.
But as part of our approval, we have to get the runoff from the houses to the swales.
Agreed.
That's a condition of the development order.
Yeah, it'd be nice to know how that's happening, so
Is it not happening?
it's not clear right now.
It is?
Go ahead.
Are these rental restricted? Is your thing restricting rentals?
I'm sorry, ma'am?
Is it rental restrictive in your covenants?
I haven't addressed that yet, but I really don't want to take away that right from any homeowner. I do not think we are going to have much in the way of rentals. Typically, people come down here to rent houses where that have as many bedrooms in as possible, and they can stick a bunch of people in. We're going to have 2 bedrooms down here. Our typical clientele are going to be singles, are going to be parents, one parent families.
But in your covenants, somebody could buy one of these, and at spring break, they could rent it to 10 kids in sleeping bags and 10 cars. Is that what you're telling me?
Ma'am, again, I'm not restricting their rental right now. It's not something I have planned on, but I just don't see how they're going to do that.
Questions.
Okay.
The traffic study that we were going to get tonight, it's not in the book. Were we going to get it here? The transportation concurrency analysis. Were we going to get it? Okay. All right, maybe I got it now, maybe I missed it. Okay, I have some other questions. The little front porch. Let's see, my third question. Is the front, it was on Monday? Did you get it? I guess.
Monday.
Okay,
I don't remember getting it.
I don't either, but I might have, and maybe I overlooked it. The front porch, is that included in the length of the cottage?
It's within the setbacks of the footprint of the house.
So the house is 25 feet long from front to back, including the front porch and the steps.
Yeah, our average footprint for the actual living area is around 650 square feet, up to
That's not
about
what I'm
800.
asking. That's not what I'm asking.
It varies from lot to lot.
No,
And
you have steps that come off the porch, okay? The steps that come down.
On some of them, correct.
Okay. Are they in the length of this, or are they not in the length? Are the steps?
The steps?
Are the front porch steps included in the 29-foot length, or not?
I don't think they are, ma'am.
What are you, I'm sorry, what are you referring
You
to?
have
You
a
said in
picture
this.
you have a picture of the house.
Is that in the compatibility analysis or the PUD
You have
plan?
a picture of the house on page 5, and it
what
shows
document?
a side porch
Right.
with steps going out the side, and it shows a front porch with steps going down.
Ma'am, that's just a representation of what that's what we're proposing, not that exact.
Stop. All I'm asking is 29 feet.
Yes,
There's not
ma'am.
going to be any porch off the 29 foot to
No.
the side, no steps off the 29 foot. The 29 foot is going to be the actual building with no additional front porch steps, no little porch on the side that looks cute, and no steps going off the side.
Ma'am, the steps may come off on the side.
Well, then, it's not going to meet the setback requirements. It's not going to meet the side setbacks if you add steps to it.
I guess I'm not clear on the actual setbacks, whether you can
Talking
have
about this
steps.
picture right here.
Yes, sir. No, I understand that.
It will not
And-
meet, it will not meet if you have steps. So I'd have to see exactly what you're gonna build. Because you're saying it's gonna be 29 feet wide, long, and it's gonna be 24 feet wide, but 24 feet plus a porch plus 3 or 4 steps getting down, you're into you're on your lot line right there.
Yes, ma'am. We understand right now, the plans for this particular development haven't been drawn yet, but we understand that the buildings will have to meet the setbacks, and the stairs and the porches and everything will have to fall inside the setback lines. That picture was to give you kind of an idea of architecturally what he's going to be going for.
Looks like a Katrina cottage with steps added to it.
Ma'am, it's just a small
But
house.
there's also a problem with the side steps.
Yeah.
That's what I said. The side steps, the side porch, you can't just come out the door and go down the steps. You gotta be able to get on the porch and off the porch.
I understand that, and the building code will allow us to do certain things, otherwise we wouldn't be able to get a permit for it, so we have to adhere to that. When the time comes, we'll have to adhere to the building code. So therefore, you won't have anything coming down the steps into the setbacks if
All
it's
right,
not
and then a while
required.
ago you said you were willing to add vegetation, but here you want to buy out vegetation. So you want to buy out some of this vegetation.
We are going to be buying out some vegetation, but
I
Mr.
thought just
Kramer
a
was
few minutes ago you said you were willing to add vegetation.
correct at the back. When we actually do the construction, if we damage any of the vegetation, we will replace it.
I think Mr. Kramer was referring specifically to the 10-foot perimeter buffer.
On the north side.
Correct.
On the north side, I mean, really, all of the perimeter, we're required to replant as necessary. But the north specifically, he requested that we beef that up, and Mr. Senior didn't have a problem with it. The buyout is for the preservation requirement, not for it's not necessarily for the perimeter buffer.
I have another question, Mr.
Go
Chairman.
ahead.
Regarding density, we haven't spoke to that yet. Your neighbors, for the most dense, are the property to the north in your compatibility analysis study area. Compatibility analysis study area took in, which is a very good, easy to read, and a nice document. One of the things that it does allow me to do when it gives you that kind of information is calculate the average densities throughout the study area. The average densities through the study areas are only 2.5 units per acre. Now that's if you were average. And I understand that you're trying to literally maximize. But sometimes, you know, given the constraints of other things, if you were clustering, not what your neighbors did to achieve 6.7 to theirs, if you'll just take it for a moment before I make my point, is that they did duplex and triplex densities with 0 lot lines in their PUD so that they were allowed to. Now, you're not, because you're looking for a concept of single-family residential for whatever purposes and still trying to fit that density in for, you know, effective cost ratios, I understand. But that doesn't mean it's a workable product. I think your densities are too high given what you've got, because what they offered, I mean, they have more than adequate, they have paved roads. Mm-hmm. They have more than adequate detention and retention around those projects. Yours is stretched, and you already brought to the attention where you have some drainage issues. If you're not going to peel off your density some, or bring 1 or 2 or 3 of the, or 6, you know, of the project of those things into a duplex where you can still have the same number of units and you're going to give yourself a little more usable space, it may be totally away from what your concept is in a livable world. But in my livable world, parking issues come into play because we still use vehicles and don't hovercraft or teleport yet. So given those realities and living with them, it makes it difficult for me to get on board with this program. And Rachel Road is, you know, another question that I didn't speak with you specifically about. Are there any other owners that are currently accessing Rachel Road other than you?
Yes, there are.
Okay. Well, for their sakes, to mitigate and leave up to the code, I wouldn't have a problem I don't know about the other commissioners, but I don't really have a problem because of the increased permeability of, your rainwater for having gravel roads inside your subdivision. Easier to control, it's your HOA, you do it. But when other people go down there and you're the ones that are on the hook for mitigating it and for maintaining it, and then you don't, it's difficult for me to approve it. So, I mean, if you're willing to break it and pave Rachel from your development out where the other people that are using it are a benefit, and your people, and you have either, you still want to maintain it, fine, because I guess you'll have to because it's a private road and not big enough to become a public road. Those are the only things, those are the other issues that I have with the project, and something that you can put in writing if you're not going to reduce that density, because I know what kind of evidence we're going to hear about. You're pushing the edge of the envelope, and to me, you pushed it too far. Not much, but you pushed it too far. So, hoping that we can come to an agreement between all of us that gets a little more workable. I mean, I like the idea of your project because everybody has their own space and they don't have neighbors on the walls next to them. But the reason that density was achievable next door, which is still less than yours, is because they did zero lot line density clustering.
Right.
And that's why we have up to 8, not 8 automatically. Up to 8 is because we hope that, some of that stuff goes up. And to use an old expression, your project, in my opinion, creates neighborhood sprawl. That's just as simple as I can put it, That's all I got to say.
Okay.
Can I comment on it?
Yes,
Sure.
please.
As far as paving Rachel Road to my project, I would not have a problem with that at all. I think obviously it'll improve it from what it is right now. And the density factor, I do understand what you're saying about parking. And in order to achieve a better situation and have better parking, I wouldn't have any objection to matching the density of the houses to the subdivision to the north of us, so we land up with about 22 and use some of that density or some of those homes as overflow parking and more vegetative area.
I think if you reduced your density by 1 or 2, depending on which one of the sites you choose for overflow parking, you could achieve it and still be slightly ahead of them, but closer.
Right. Well, I certainly wouldn't have a problem looking at that and figuring that out to have excess parking.
Anybody else have anything for the applicant? Any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll open the public portion of the hearing. We have a lot of people who have signed up to speak. I'm just going to go down the stack one by one. What I would ask is that we try not to be too repetitive. In other words, get up, everybody say the same thing over and over. If you want to stand up and say, I agree with what he said, that's usually sufficient. Save us a lot of time. But Carolyn Knight.
My name is Carolyn Knight. I live on Spotted Dolphin Road in Santa Rosa Beach, and I have been sworn in.
Pull the mic down, please.
Knight is K.
Pull the mic down. Pull the mic down. Thank you.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Knight. I'm here tonight to read an email from Michael Jenkins that was sent to Carrie Ty. There is no drainage outfall design for Sugar Estates. As a result, there is extreme flooding conditions following a sustained rain event. To allow any additional development that is in any proximity to Sugar Estates or Escata without an overall design to relieve the flooding of these neighborhoods would be reckless and irresponsible on the county government's agencies. So, we have not, I believe Ms. Harris mentioned a design, and Mr. Patton did also, for which that has not been revealed. as you know, we had to call the National Guardian over on Spotted Dolphin because our neighborhood is in the overflow, is in the Peace Pond district of Stallworth. And so that's my concern tonight, and I'm sure it's a lot of people's concern. So
Okay.
please
Ms.
make sure
Knight?
that there is a plan.
Who is Mike Jenkins?
He lives at 179 Sugar Cove Road.
He's one of the neighbors. Is he an engineer?
He's a contractor that built several homes in Escata, and he built his home in Sugar Estates.
Okay. So he's a contractor and a local.
Yes, sir.
Thank
He
you.
lives in Sugar Estates.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Lois LeSueur. You gonna speak? You gonna wait?
I signed up in case you had questions about the compatibility analysis that I can answer.
You wanna wait until we after the public portion? Heather
It's Cainers.
Cainers?
Caeners.
Okay.
I've been previous this morning. I have a vacation home at 114 Via Largo. It's a second home of mine. I purposely purchased there due to its residential quality. I had looked all over the area to find a nice hometown for me to come to, and that was it. And this is a hotel. This is a hotel you're putting in the backyard. We're not creating a residential space. We're creating, as Ms. Harris mentioned, we're creating spring break parties. We're creating summer vacation spots for people that cannot afford the 10-bedroom mansions. They're going to go to the $200 a night place that's right around the corner from one of our perfect beaches. That is what this is. So I understand they want to maximize, they want to get as much money as they possibly can. But our area on this side of 30A is pristine. And because of all of you guys making sure of that, allowing something like this takes away that. And it takes away from people that want to live here, not just vacation here. This is my plan. This is where I plan to reside when I retire. You take that away, and instead you just have tourists who don't care like we care about the properties here. I know, Mr. Kramer, you've mentioned a lot of really great things that I wanted to also point out. A lot of things we've been talking about the preservation issues and a lot of terminology saying
Just
it's
address us up here.
I'm
okay?
sorry. A lot of terminology stating that it's unfortunate that the preservation says this. It's unfortunate. They're there for a reason. They were created for a reason, and therefore they should be followed. If it's not convenient for the developer, well, then they can choose something else. It's real easy. You follow the plans. That's why they're there. It's to protect what we have. That's why it's called preservation. Also, the square footage of these things is 630 square feet on average. I don't know if my bathroom is that size. I mean, that's ridiculous. This isn't a home, so.
Careful now.
Yeah.
People live in homes that size.
Well, I'm just saying though, it's not in where it's going to be located and where they're wanting and selling to. It's not the type of unit that is meant to be a home. It's being set up to be meant for a vacation or a short-term rental, that sort of thing. There's no covenants that are going to be set up. That's one thing that Escata does have. Escata, yes, has a very small amount of, a large amount of properties in a small area. I completely agree with that. However, there is the covenant restrictions. We don't have vacation rentals. We do not have any of those things. We have homeowners. We have people that work and reside here living there. That creates a totally different environment than your weekend day trippers, that sort of thing. So if you can keep the idea that the preservation, the size of these things is going to create not a residential community, but create a hotel or a limited term use community, that's what you're creating here. Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine Hoffer?
Catherine Hoffer. It's a C. And I've been previously Hoff as in Frank, E-R. And I've been previously sworn in. I own Block I in Beach Highlands subdivision, first edition, a portion of which includes a tributary of one in coastal Dune Lake, Stallworth. My property has been flooded with increased stormwater flow due to housing development in the area. Adjacent properties on Spotted Dolphin Lane and North Bishop Road are currently affected by the failure of planning for stormwater drainage involving the filling of isolated wetlands on Spotted Dolphin Lane and turning Peace Pond into a stormwater retention pond. My concern is that my property will become an unchecked, continually and increasing water flow of stormwater runoff from surrounding development. I am opposed to the density of Sydney Park project's land footprint, in which their stormwater solution seems to include dumping in an area inadequate for coastal Dune Lake drainage basin. In the words of the engineer, the property drainage eventually slopes south towards Peace Pond. I am also opposed to the house specs, which are not compatible with my neighborhood and other surrounding neighbors. Lastly, I feel the approval of Sydney Park would be grossly inappropriate since the county's conceptual stormwater plan has yet to be presented to this committee and the public. Do not allow Sydney Park to proceed. And one other note, when the developers brought up their projects for Escada and Spotted Dolphin, they also said that they were going to redo their own stormwater retention plan, not dovetailing into any consistent plan that was overall for the county. And quite frankly, I don't believe them.
Thank you. David Kricka.
For the record, my name is David Kricka, K-R-I-K-A. I am the board president of Escada Block B Homeowners Association. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of my homeowners association as well as the Friends of Rachel Road. We fully oppose this project for many of the reasons that people on the board have already cited. For the sake of time, I will not repeat them, but I will ask a few questions. Have we received an answer from the developer? Is he going to make a deed-restricted homeowners association community? I contend the answer is no. We have video of the original meeting where he said he would not do this. Also, for the record, I would like to contest the posting of the notice for this original community meeting. The paper on record for Walton County is the Herald Breeze that was verified through Mr. Davis's office this afternoon. I have an email. His notice was not posted in the Herald Breeze, and the only reason myself and other homeowners here knew about that is we were fortunate to have a neighbor who reads through the Northwest Florida Daily News. One of our homeowners commented at that meeting that it almost seemed the developer was trying to hide the project from us as opposed to present it to us. Stormwater has been touched on. I'm sure there are other people that are here that will speak on it. I will defer to them. There is some information in your packets regarding the developer's financial status, which I'm not going to discuss in an open forum, but I'm sure you've read it. That is of serious concern to our ownership. The density of the project is extremely concerning. The tiny home experiment is not something that we feel is going to benefit. It will actually hurt our property values. I did a property value assessment in there based on actual real estate statistics. On the record, on the video, the developer says he was going to list these 650 square foot homes for $170,000. The math is presented in the packets that we put together for you. In addition, it's already been touched on, but I want to emphasize, 53% of the proposed units will encroach into the 10-foot environmental buffer. That is something that we really have a serious problem with. Also, the stormwater ponds, one of the ponds almost directly abuts up to one of our residents' backyards. There are concerns about that. As you can see from all the questions that were answered today or attempted to be answered by the engineer and the developer, I don't feel these gentlemen were prepared to present to you. I highly urge you on behalf of the 67 homeowners of my neighborhood who are registered voters in this county, most of them, to not pass this project as it stands at this time. We are not opposed to developing that property. We are opposed to this development. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Diane Malo?
No comment at this time.
Okay. Linda Selfridge, Ron Selfridge?
Can we go together?
Sure you can. As long as you both identify yourself and if you've been sworn, and don't talk over each other.
Please state and just spell your last name.
Hi, my name is Linda Selfridge. This is my husband, Ron Selfridge.
Could you spell your last name?
Selfridge.
You have been sworn?
And I have been sworn in.
Yes, sir.
You have. Okay.
My concern is, we live on Rachel Road, so this affects us deeply. The animals on the road. I have pictures of my front yard, of the bear, gopher turtles or gopher tortoises, the deer, all kinds of animals go use that area. And my point is that if you put all those houses in there with a 10-foot buffer zone, those animals have lost their ability to get from Topsail over by the school through that piece of property that they use all the time, over to the state forest, and then on over to the other side of the state forest over there. They really use this road a lot, I'm telling you. I don't want to see 26 homes back there. We could see a few homes back there with bigger development that allow the animals to actually use it. 10-foot buffer zone is ridiculous. That's all I have to say. And and if there's going to be that many houses, they have to pave it.
Okay.
Our house would be just a dust hole.
There's only 3 cars utilizing that road now. It's bad. And I got a petition signed. There's 6 pages here. If you guys want, I got 10 copies of people opposing this project.
You can.
And I could add
They
that
should keep a copy for the BCC, or will BCC automatically get it?
There's 10 copies.
I have a picture of a gopher turtle that's in my front yard, and it's a threatened species. Where are they going to go? I don't know. You can use this
I
information
rode
if
my
you
back
want.
to the beach this morning, and behind the school, Butler School over there, they got 10 new mods in their school deals.
Do you want to see that?
Are the gopher tortoises on this land, or are they on Rachel Road?
They're all over in there. I mean, if you want to look closer at some of these
No, I believe you.
No, you have to, you have to put them into evidence. You have to put them into evidence.
Well, that's just a picture of our road, and that's
Okay.
with 2 cars trying to pass right.
Anything you turn in as evidence, you won't get back, so.
Oh, that's fine. I don't have an extra copy.
Anything they do to
But
that,
we understand, and we believe that there's animals out there.
anything they do to the road is on our property,
Right.
195 feet
Okay.
swath. through
That's a better picture.
Our front driveway.
I
Okay.
took pictures. I do have these pictures.
Mark, I mean,
It might be better to set it up, and then get written up like you did.
okay.
Mr. Chairman, just so I have a clean record, the 2 documents presented, the petition will call objectors, objectors Exhibit 1, and the threats to the gopher tortoises package with the pictures will call objectors Exhibit 2.
Petition is objectors exhibit.
Would be number 1, and this will be number 2.
Okay.
And make sure y'all.
Jim Crawford.
Hello, sir. How's it going, the board? Hello. My name's Jim Crawford. Jim Crawford. One of my concerns.
Were you sworn in?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
One of my concerns is I'm living next to one of Mike Senior's subdivisions, and we've got serious parking problems. And what I've seen in the model here that he has over there is that the actual car parking, you have to use part of the easement to actually park your cars. So even if you park your cars on your own property, you don't have enough room. And with 2 parking spots, I live in Serenity, next door to Serenity, and they're having parking problems now, and we only have 5 or 6 people coming in there. Of course, it's on the weekends. But I would just like to make sure that whatever y'all can do for parking, it's really important, because what they did on my place is they have half private roads and then half public roads, and these cars are parking out into the public roads, and you're having a hard time getting in and out personally if you're not part of that subdivision, or even if you are part of that subdivision. But whatever you can do for the parking, and we also, with that road being so narrow coming in and out with all that traffic, is there's just a lot of people coming in and out of a little bitty road.
Okay, thank you.
Jim Crawford. Thank you.
Ken Hastings,
No comment this time.
Ross Binkley. That's you, yeah. Celeste Cabina.
I have 2 handouts, and there should be
Spell your last name.
COBNA.
And you have been sworn?
Yes.
We'll call the first packet objectors 3, the second packet objectors 4.
Yeah, I've got 2 pictures for you to look at. If I can wait for just so you can see them. But my name is Celeste Cabina, and I live in Beach Highlands, First Edition, 412 Hilltop Drive. And I've been there 25 years. I've seen a lot of changes. I've seen a lot of developments come in that area, and I've seen the increase in flooding. My home doesn't flood, but my neighbors' homes flood. And I've kind of got a map that shows all the things that a lot of folks have been talking about, and this kind of gives you an aerial view of the drainage basin for Stallworth. And you can see the Stallworth tributary, and that tributary goes all the way up to Crystal Spring. And at Crystal Spring is where water emerges from the groundwater north of there. And you can also see the proximity to spotted dolphin. And spotted dolphin in Peace Pond, all that flood water was backing up into homes, and I know Escada had issues, and the flood of last year in 2014 was not the first time there was a problem there. For years, that area was having problems. So what the county did last year was they decided to dig a ditch to relieve the problems there. And you can see the ditch. It was done under an emergency order. And I want you to note that if you look where the Stallworth tributary goes all the way up to that Crystal Springs, that in fact the Sydney Park development is just about the same, if not closer, than some of the flooding issues there at Spotted Dolphin and Peace Pond. Again, next week, the county, and this is what they've turned one of their hotspots, the county is going to come forward with some plans for this. And I think there needs to certainly be some sort of a hold at looking at any of this until we see how the county is going to relieve the problems already existing here with flooding. You've heard from some of the other people that have the problems, and there's Block I. That lady has had a lot of flooding on her property all along the Stallworth tributary. Those people had additional water because of this. How much more additional water is going to move onto these people's property? And I know there's been a lot of discussion about the coastal dune lakes, and there's a lot of restrictions on them. And maybe this isn't within the 300 foot of the tributary that, as decided by the county, but you know what? As a homeowner, you can't, I don't even know if you live on a coastal dune lake, you can literally water your lawn without having a problem with storm water by the county records. Yet the county comes in and you can see the ditch that they dug, and have yet to fix it. And the DEP told them, I was in a meeting when the DEP said this must be restored. And the DEP is waiting for the plan that is to come forward next week. And I think there's no reason to add any more issues to this area until that plan has come forward. So, and that's what I'm saying. And also, just personally, I think this is a ridiculous, dense development for this area. I think there's, something a lot less dense could go in, and there's still a lot of money to be made. They can do it right. And we've seen time and time again in Walton County, things aren't done right, and it affects everybody. You can still do things right, make everyone happy, and make a lot of money. That's what I got to say.
Margie Jordan.
Good evening. My name is Margie Jordan. I live at 264 Via Largo in the Escada subdivision. I'm the vice president of the Homeowners Association. I'm the original owner. I've owned my home since 2001.
Were you sworn in?
Yes, I was previously sworn in. Thank you. I passed out just a little handout to you, and mine are more neighborhood concerns. I don't understand all the floodwater stuff, even though our neighborhood was flooded for a good part of last year. The things that I wanted to touch on is that the only entrance into any of Escada back to Rachel Road, Slalom Way, and the Sugar Cove Street is from Sugar Drive, 98. That's the only entrance, that's the only exit. When I was here in the spring of 2002, there was a large forest fire that happened between Sugar Drive and Thompson Road, where all of us needed to be evacuated at that time. My neighborhood was not built out at that time. It is now at 67 residences. There's 110 in Block A of Escada. There's several on Sugar Cove. There's several on Slalom Way, and of course on Rachel Road. Any emergency evacuation would create chaos, and added to that, there is also not a signal light or even turn lanes at 98 and Sugar Drive, which in the present time has also created a problem for us. The PUD plan asking for the deviation of the setback of 15 feet is just absolutely unacceptable to only have a 10-foot setback. And as you have seen in the in this drawing, I enlarged it for my purposes because I'm getting old, but it encroaches several of our backyards. They're just going to be sitting right on top of us. The other, the paving of the roads, I read the response from the county saying that the roads would need to be paved. I don't know about gravel roads, but it just seems to be consistent with everything else in the neighborhood that they be paved and curbed. But I know that would encroach on their plan of their little stamp lot. And the type of neighborhood, I hope this has been clarified by now, but at a public meeting that we had in May regarding this project, we asked repeatedly what was the purpose of this community, and it is not to be a covenant homeowners association. It is planned to be.
Speak to us, please, just around this way.
It is planned to be, it is single ownership without an HOA, without covenants and restrictions. And that also is unacceptable. The price point for the property is, and by the square footage, is close to being double of what our homes are, which are twice the size of these homes. And so I think the only way you could conceivably make money on this is to make them short-term rentals, vacation rentals. And finally, my neighborhood problem, I'm an old teacher, so I worry about the kids, is that the only walkable access to the beach from Sugar Drive is through a greenway trail that goes behind Butler Elementary School. And there's a small amount of fence there, but then as soon as you step beyond that fence, you're on school grounds. And that's the only way you can get to 38 you have to drive otherwise. So That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
These are David Krika's handouts. Is this the same one that he sent in? Is this the same one that was sent in and on what was this? Is there one copy here? 10 copies of each.
How many different ones are there? How many different ones are there?
You sent one in that's in your book.
Right, but I mean, how many different ones are there?
Do these people realize that that's going to be for the BCC and
Yeah.
need copies for
I've
that?
seen it.
Yeah, she said, didn't she say that? It's the only copy she had?
The last person that signed up was Mike Senior. I don't think you need to speak. I mean, we're going to get to you
He's
too.
back there.
Mark,
Hang on just a second. How many of those are there?
Well, there's 10 copies of 4 different copies.
Okay, so we'll make them objectors exhibits 5, 6, 7, and 8. Sure. If I skipped a number, just.
just a quick question
Sure.
before you start, if you don't mind. This is adjacent to our catty corner from a school board property. Do the school board proffer any written comments?
It's in here.
There was some in here, actually,
Let's finish the public portion of the meeting before we get to that, okay?
I just want to look for them.
It's in there.
Go ahead.
So anyone want to swear me in? I've been sworn in.
You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you will give before this board will be the truth.
I do.
Thank you.
And for the record, go ahead and state your name for Carrie.
She's
Separating.
working.
She's still trying to work on those last, I don't know where that came from.
One of them has 2 names.
For the record, my name is Murray Balcom. That's M-U-R-R-A-Y.
M-U-R?
M-U-R-R-A-Y. B as in boy. A-L-K-C-O-M. Yes. I'm both a master naturalist and a realtor, which are in juxtaposition when it comes to development and caring about that land that we impact as realtors and developers around here too. I have seen examples of small home neighborhoods built throughout the United States with 600 to 800 smart houses. And I would say smart houses don't have a lot of wasted space in them. So while I don't think the concept of a small house neighborhood is inherently bad, I think it can be a very good thing for a community if it's well planned. Part of that planning goes into the densities. And the densities I've seen on the other properties where they've had these small house neighborhoods also include a lot of public park that is shared common area, as a lawn would be like you might see in watercolor. A green space that's of decent size so that not everybody has to have their own yard, but it's a common yard. Parking in the back behind it. I haven't seen, except off in the distance, the actual map of this property. But since I was hearing about it, I started looking it up and found it online pretty easily and very familiar with the area. The density that I think would be acceptable for something like this would be much less than the maximum that the county actually allows. I think if you were doing something that's creative and smart and a sellable benefit and feature as a livable community, that's going to be somewhere around the 12 to 14 homes as a max so that you can actually enjoy space. So I'm glad we're seeing something like the 600, 800 square foot homes being built. when most of the properties down here in South Walton are in the 3,000 square foot size. We need some smaller spaces. All of that said, I have been down Spotted Dolphin probably 20 times since living here. And I have seen the north side of Spotted Dolphin without standing water once. This was long before the rains we had last year. The north side is always filled with water every time I've been down there, with one exception. It's inherently a bad drainage issue. I have not sold any homes on there and would very quickly be telling my clients that would looking to buy on there about the problems they have. A pond is uphill from your house. You do the math. If this property is where I think it is, that's even further north of that pond, you've got a problem. I'm glad Celeste pointed out that the stream goes down to Stallworth. I know this is not impacting, supposedly, impacting the coastal dune lakes there at Stallworth, but I can tell you as a master naturalist, anything you do in Sugar with that drainage going downhill into wetlands is going directly into Stallworth. So whether it be lawns that apply fertilizers, you're going to have more algae blooms in that lake, and it's going to more damage Lake Stallworth from an ecological standpoint. So I just want you to carefully consider that in there. I also know about the Greenway path that's built from Sugar back, winds through there, and it does dump directly into the school property about halfway in there, which if we're trying to protect our kids in schools, it seems kind of weird that we allow or have the public trail dump out into that area to begin with. But I think with the zoning density of what this is, I heard Mr. Kramer speak to, we give maximums as we have up to this limit, and I think we should consider what that impact is and not go for maximum density.
Thank you. Anybody else that didn't sign up? Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, Debbie James, and I have not been sworn in.
Just raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give before this board will be the truth?
Yes, I did. Debbie James, James. I am a homeowner, 91 Via Largo, and I want to mention that I did not receive a letter about the first meeting. The only way I knew about it was from my neighbor David Kricka after it happened. The other thing, being a real estate agent in this area for 11 years and owning in Escada, there's no way a 650 square foot home could be sold for $170,000 when my home is about 1,700 square feet, and on a good day it's worth maybe $150, $160. So I have to respectfully disagree with that price point. Also, there is no other compatible properties in the area, as people have mentioned. When we had the heavy rains last year, I was flooded in. I could not get out of my driveway. The top of Sugar was also flooded, so we couldn't even get out of Sugar. A couple of things I'd like to point out in this planned unit development that I received, just some of the paperwork. Sydney Park proposes cottages approximately 650 square feet of living space that have been designed for single parents, and retired homeowners. As a real estate agent, my understanding is you can't restrict properties to certain people unless it's a 55 and older community. So to me, that's illegal because I can't steer a single person into a certain community. The other thing I'd like to mention regarding the parking is definitely going to be an issue because we have a larger community and no overflow parking, and so it's already an issue in our community. Regarding the traffic study, he mentions vacation rentals. I also own a vacation rental company on 30A, and let me tell you, at any price, a renter will rent a vacation home. Parking will be an issue, and in the traffic study in this report here, it reflects the impact of 31 total trips But if it's a vacation rental, now you're going to have, I mean, if you have 2 cars per home, that's going to be a heck of a lot more than 31 trips. So now the traffic on Sugar, God forbid there's an emergency, does get even more heavy. And if he's not opposed to, if he doesn't think really it's going to be vacation rentals, why wouldn't he make it a deed restricted community? I just don't think that as a real estate agent it's not compatible, and it will bring our values down. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the hearing.
Wasn't Lois going to speak?
Excuse me?
What?
Well,
She's
I
working.
think Mike would like to respond to some of the comments, and I would.
Yeah,
I understand. Yeah,
before we
that's
close the
fine.
public hearing.
Okay, go ahead.
Chairman, just a few comments I'd like to clarify. As far as having an HOA and closing covenants, we absolutely are going to do that. We always intended to do that. I'd love to do 12 homes on this property. It's just not feasible. It's not possible to do. We are, as far as the small homes, and I've heard a lot of comments about these small homes. I mean, it is very much a growing movement. There is no reason for a lot of people to have huge houses. A well-designed house that uses environmentally friendly methods does do well. And I respectfully disagree with the realtors here. I mean, I know we can achieve our price point on it. If you've got a house that uses very little in electricity, very little utilities, is controlled, we have a smart system for utilities for AC, HVAC, we have foam, spray and foam insulation. It can do exceptionally well. We live in a beautiful area. Why do you want to spend all the time inside? Spend time outside. I mean, I believe in these projects. I believe in these homes. They've been done throughout the country right now. I think because it's small doesn't mean it has to be bad quality or poorly designed. I think what we're looking at is something that's going to be very well designed, going to have high-end finishes, and if anything is going to increase property values. Our square foot price right now is, and I've heard from some of the public, is double what they're selling their properties for or have sold. And I still stand by it that we can get that because we are going to be building a quality product. But that's all. Thank you very much.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Since you brought up HVAC, where are your air conditioning, where are your compressors and condensers going to be located on the property? Are they going to be outside of the footprint of the house in the easement?
Yes, ma'am. We are looking at different HVAC methods as well. We're looking at split condense units, which are going to be stuck on the side of the house. So they're going to have separate little units inside the bedrooms and living areas. It's used a lot throughout Europe and Asia. Very economical, does very well, taking up less area.
Is it going to be deed restricted to only one story?
Yes, ma'am. We're going to have one story, possibly some loft area in some of the designs, but generally just a single story.
It's going to be one story, or it's going to be generally one story?
It's going to be one story, and some of them are going to have loft areas. Yes, sir.
You go ahead. I'm flipping through all of them.
This site plan was in our package someplace, but it's not in the engineering drawings, and I'm just questioning, are we keeping the, is this the pool configuration? Are you doing these little paths to the pool, or is that just an artist's rendering?
Yes, we are going to be doing paths to the pool.
Okay, so this
it's just a natural path on the ground. I mean, we aren't. It's
Okay.
not concrete or anything of that nature.
Okay. Well, I guess there is room on the other plan. The lots got bigger on this plan. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir, if you have some questions.
Sorry, any other questions?
All right. Ms. LeSueur.
Yes, I'm Lois LeSueur. I was sworn. Just to address the question that was raised earlier about preservation buyout, initially we were proposing a much, much, much smaller preservation buyout, but the planning department advised us that they don't like to count preservation areas that are within the lots within the actual lot boundaries, simply because they feel that it makes it much more difficult to control whether that preservation gets cleared. So we took all those areas that are going to be within the lots. They will be, the covenants and restrictions will keep the homeowners from being able to clear those areas, but we are not counting that as preservation area simply because the planning department was not comfortable with that. It is very typical for lot lines to cross over the 10-foot landscape buffer. Those buffers are on lots all over Walton County. They are preserved, of course, through the covenants and restrictions. And as Mr. Senior said, he's perfectly willing to add additional plantings to buffer on the side where it would be typical for the lot lines to back up to the lot lines on the adjacent property and still have that 10-foot buffer. As for the stormwater, the county has already requested, and we have already provided, a 100-year storm event, a stormwater treatment for up to a 100-year storm event. That's considerably more than the typical 25-year storm event. There are 20 acres approximately of state forest between our property and the properties down in Beach Highlands. I really don't think that stormwater from this subdivision is going to adversely impact those properties, but and much as I would approve the county doing a comprehensive, altogether interlocked stormwater system, that is not the situation that the county has ever proposed. It's always been each individual development has to address its own stormwater, and so that's how we've designed this. As far as the gopher tortoises go, we had an environmental assessment. There are no gopher tortoises or gopher tortoise burrows on this property. If there were, we would obviously relocate those, but there are none that anyone has found. Do you have any other questions?
Yes. Naturally, the pool area will be fenced. Does the subdivision allow fencing in the yards?
I don't know that that determination has been made. He's saying no.
No, that's something I'm not going to allow. There will be no fencing allowed.
Well, I was going to say, because so many of there's seems to be, by the design, a lot of common areas that are not accessible commonly because the lot lines, especially in your corners areas, because the lot lines cut it all off, and I mean, there's a lot of open space in the called common areas, but if fencing was allowed, I don't know how anyone would get to these.
No, there is no fencing. We are not going to have that.
That'll be restricted?
Yes, sir.
No fencing?
No fencing.
Okay.
Anybody have anything else?
No, the public hearing's closed.
Yeah, public portion of the hearing is closed. Commissioners, do you have anything else? Any questions for anybody? If not,
I'll go ahead and make a motion. If
Go
we
ahead.
close the public hearing, did you close it?
yes.
Okay. Oh, I make a motion that we recommend to the county commission that they not grant the variances requested for this PUD.
Have a motion?
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion?
That's just one motion for right now?
I think that's all that's before.
That was one motion.
Okay.
What?
Is
That's all I'm
recommendation to deny the project or deny the variance requested within?
Well, if you deny the variances, the project has to be resubmitted. So if that's not consistent, please tell me
No, I think if you deny the variances, they'll have to resubmit.
Yeah, they have to resubmit.
Right,
Yeah, and then we'll evaluate what comes back, but.
right.
But
Yeah,
I-
we
Send
have-
the project to the county commission and see if they agree with that
You-
recommendation?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, you have that right.
But I think, we can go down 30A on the north side and north of Goat Feathers. I can't remember my names of my road tonight, but we've got a whole bunch of subdivisions that we granted variances to that have basically no side yards, no front yards, cars that stick out in the road and so on. A lot of them, most of them have not been built upon because it's just not an acceptable lifestyle to people. And there's no room for kids to play, no room for the steps, no room for a lot of things. And I think we probably got too many pounds of something in a very small site here, so.
Call the question.
Did we have a second?
Yes.
Yes,
Suzanne.
Suzanne
Let
second.
me, all right, so this is only to deny the restrictions, right?
Deny the request for
Listed
the
variances to
variances.
the public.
That's all it is.
If you want to restructure the motion, I think denying the restrictions basically says that the plan is not approved, it's submitted, and it can come back to us in some other form.
And you can do it, one motion to deny and one motion not to recommend the project. You can do it in two motions. Don't have any hurry.
You take two motions, let's get this
Yeah.
motion out of the way.
Or grant. Yeah. Say-
Or I can amend my motion to say that we, but I think I've said that. I mean, basically, if you take away the variances, the project
It's
might
dead.
meet code. I mean, I don't know if it does or not, but basically, and we don't have any right to deny a project that has engineering approval and meets all county codes. So I think when we take away the variances, you basically denied the project.
And they still have the right to go to the county commissioners,
Right.
even if we do that, so it's still up to them. But I think the lawyer down here on the end has stated that Tom's motion would in fact
Would encompass
kill the
what we want.
project. They would have to
As
resubmit
it's
to us,
submitted.
As submitted.
as it is submitted right
Yeah.
now.
Okay, we have a
They would
motion.
have to resubmit before it goes to the VCC, is that correct?
No.
Okay.
No.
They can take this same plan to the BCC.
Okay.
The recommendation from you guys would be not to grant the variances, not to approve the project.
Which if it makes everybody feel better, I'll go ahead and restructure my motion to be not to approve the variances and not to approve the project.
That's fine, I second that motion.
You okay with that?
Yep.
Wait. And they still have the right to bring it to the county commissioners.
Right, I
regardless.
understand that.
When will this actually go to the county commission?
Oh, it'd probably be in.
While Carrie catches up over there before we vote, just for the benefit of the public, to make sure you understand the process, all we do is make a recommendation to the county commissioners. The county commissioners have the ultimate say. So, we ready? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries
Unanimously.
unanimously, and we have no other items on the agenda, so we will stand adjourned.
It was a good idea to have five go first.
David, when are we gonna have breakfast?
I'm kind of busy this weekend. You down this weekend?
No, Joyce.
That would have put those other people.
You know, still tender.
Sitting there for
I'm
now.
glad to get that out of the way.
Probably next week. I'll say within 2 weeks. I'll give you a call. And if you've been